Okay, so let's get into this most recent filing of Diddy's defense team to Judge Subramanian. The defense respectfully submits this letter in support of its renewed motion for a mistrial based on prosecutorial misconduct. When the introduction of perjured testimony results in a criminal conviction and, quote, the prosecution knew or should have known of the perjury, the conviction must be set aside if there is any reasonable likelihood that the false testimony could have affected the judgment of the jury, unquote. This is from United States versus Wallach, a case that was cited, and it goes on to state, moreover, the prosecutor's knowing use of perjured testimony can violate the due process clause even if it only undermines a witness's credibility. They go on to cite more cases and follows by saying, as the Supreme Court has explained, a lie is a lie no matter what is subject and if it is in any way relevant to the case. The district attorney has the responsibility and duty to correct what he knows to be false and to elicit the truth. Now, as explained below in this trial, the government has presented testimony that it knew or should have known was materially false related to the allegation that Mr. Combs dangled Brianna Bongolan from the balcony of Cassie Ventura's apartment in September 2016. Accordingly, to avoid an unfair conviction in this case, the court should grant a mistrial. The government contends the alleged balcony incident is relevant because it shows Mr. Combs' violence directed not only to Ms. Ventura, but to other people around Ms. Ventura. She is aware of this violence, and because of her awareness, it goes into coercion. The incident, as alleged, is disturbing and powerful evidence, and the government has used it to depict Mr. Combs in an extremely negative light as an angry and dangerous man who terrified Miss Ventura and her friends. It goes on to say the prosecutors elicited evidence about this allegation from both Miss Ventura and Miss Bongolan that is demonstrably false in key respects. They then doubled down using this false testimony to obtain a ruling admitting inadmissible hearsay evidence about it as well, all to present a false narrative to the jury. So what they are saying is that the defense of Diddy's defense lawyers are arguing that the prosecutors knew that Miss Ventura, Cassie, and her friend Brianna were lying about that balcony incident, and they allowed those two ladies to testify to that incident in an effort to paint Diddy as a violent person and to say that not only was he violent towards Cassie, but he was also violent towards her friends. And this means that he basically was instilling fear and terrorizing everybody that was connected to Cassie. The letter goes on to say the government stated by eliciting testimony from Ms. Ventura about the allegation that cannot be true. I'm sorry. The letter continues to read the government started by eliciting testimony from Ms. Ventura about the allegation that cannot be true. Ms. Ventura said she actually saw Mr. Combs holding Ms. Bongola over the balcony railings. And the testimony is quoted as saying, I saw him bring her back over the railing of the balcony and then throw her onto the patio furniture. Yet the prosecutor knew she had not actually seen what she described because they had in their possession a text conversation demonstrating that Ms. Ventura was told about the alleged incident by another unidentified person. And so that text message that they are referencing says, hey, I just found out some crazy shit. I'm just finding out right now That's a quote from the text message that was sent to Cassie. Nonetheless, they allowed Ms. Ventura to continue to insist on cross-examination that she had witnessed this incident. The question that was asked on cross is, and you testified that you saw him throw her onto the patio furniture, right? And she answered, yep. He brought her back over the balcony and he threw her down. She persisted in this story even after she was confronted by the text messages. And the testimony went forward with another question, and that is, isn't it true that you learned about this incident on the balcony after the fact? And Cassie stated, I saw what I saw, so I don't know. Another question was asked on testimony, saying, has the government, in your preparation for your testimony in this case, gone over this message with you? And Cassie responded, not this one, no. The letter continues, thus the government left the jury with the false impression that Miss Ventura saw Mr. Combs dangle her friend over the balcony and that this made her fearful of him, when in fact, if there was any incident, Ventura merely heard about it afterwards, considerably lessening any probative value as to her state of mind, meaning that if this incident even really happened, and the defense is saying that this incident likely didn't even happen, but they're saying if it did in fact happen, Cassie heard about it after the fact, and that lessens any value to her testimony of what happened in court that day. The letter continues, next, the government doubled down by presenting perjured testimony from Bongolan intended to corroborate Ventura's false testimony. Bongolan claimed Combs lifted her up and held her feet on the balcony railing, and that this caused injuries to the back of my leg and back and neck pain. Bongolan was very definitive about these injuries, and particularly the bruise on her leg, which was one of the details that, quote unquote, stuck out in her mind. Now, there is a little key information that they have listed at the bottom. It says, as the government also knows, like other witnesses in this case, Ventura and Bongolan have been in frequent contact at key points and have had many opportunities to collaborate on their stories. And in fact, Bongolan admitted the two friends discussed this incident before and after Ventura filed her lawsuit. Now, Bongolan also has an enormous financial motive to lie. This is what the defense is writing to the judge. Bongolan has an enormous financial motive to lie because she filed a $10 million lawsuit against Combs based on this same allegation, and will benefit by exaggerating the scope of her injuries to obtain damages. The note also goes on to say her account makes no sense and seems to be physically impossible. Mr. Combs is only about 6 feet tall, and even if he is, quote, bigger than her, he is not tall enough to have been able to hold a shorter adult by her armpits so high that her feet would have been on the balcony railing, as Bongolan testified. California law required balcony railings to have a minimum height of 42 inches. The letter goes on to say, and this is a question and answer segment from testimony from Bongolan's testimony. Oh, no, this is Cassie. No, this is Bongolan's testimony. Question, where did you go after you left Cassie's apartment? Her answer, I went to my apartment. Question, what did you do at your apartment? Bongolan says, I was shaking a lot, and then I wanted to take a shower because I felt disgusted, and then I look over behind my leg and I see a huge bruise. We'll talk about the bruise in just a moment, the lawyer said. The defense attorney said. Miss Bongolan, do you remember all the details of the incident that night? She states no. Do the details that you've talked about stick out in your mind? She says yes. They go on to question, what, if any, physical injuries did you have as a result of that night? She says, I had that big bruise with it was like a piercing in the middle of it. And then I had back and neck pain. And that was the end of the question answer testimony segment that they included in this portion of the letter. But the letter goes on to state that the government next introduced photographs of the injuries Ms. Bongolan supposedly sustained at the hands of Mr. Combs, including a photo depicting a leg injury taken on September 26, 2016 at 9:45 a.m. Bongolan testified that she took the photos of her leg injuries around that time, indicated in the exhibit that she did so the same day as the incident, that she got that injury from being thrown onto the balcony furniture. But on cross, she confirmed that the balcony incident happened early in the morning, that the photo of the leg bruise was taken later that day, and that the injuries to her back and her leg happened the same day. The government then introduced photographs of the injuries supposedly sustained at the hands of Mr. Combs during the incident. The government knew, or should have known, this testimony was perjured and that Ms. Bongolan could not possibly have been injured by Mr. Combs on a Los Angeles balcony in the early morning hours of September 26 or even the day before that. The government has long known that Mr. Combs was on the East Coast in late September, and specifically at around the time of this alleged incident. The government knew that he had stayed at Trump Hotel in New York City between September 24th through 29th of 2016. In fact, the government had marked as exhibit number the records of this hotel stay, which are now in evidence. And it had other evidence in its possession for some time showing Mr. Combs' travel schedule and proving that he was on the East Coast when it told the jury he dangled Miss Bongolan over a balcony in front of Miss Ventura. So basically they're saying that the government allowed Cassie and Bongolan to testify about a time frame when Diddy was supposed to be on the opposite coast. He was supposed to be on the East Coast during the date and time of this injury that they're talking about regarding the balcony and the balcony furniture. This is a long letter, but it's almost done, so let me keep going. What's more, when the defense began to expose the perjury on cross-examination, the government repeatedly attempted to disrupt the cross with unfounded objections and requests for sidebars, and unfounded claims such as that proper leading questions meant defense counsel was testifying. Then, despite having elicited Ventura's false testimony about having directly witnessed the alleged incident, the government persuaded the court to admit the hearsay text messages with Coram, the assistant, describing what Ventura had found out from someone else. Despite having elicited perjurious testimony from Ventura, claiming she saw the alleged conduct, all of this was highly improper and exacerbated the harm caused by subnorming the perjured testimony. Subpoenaing the perjured testimony. It bears emphasis that the use of the perjured testimony regarding the balcony incident is just one example of prosecutorial misconduct during this trial. The defense previously moved for a mistrial based on the improper line of questioning related to the 2012 destruction of fingerprints provided by Scott Mescudi to the LAPD. As the court will recall, the defense argued that the government's motive in eliciting this testimony was to create an unfounded and highly inference that Mr. Combs somehow had corruptly arranged for the destruction of the fingerprints. The government claimed that was not the purpose of the questions and that the court denied the motion and instead gave a narrow limiting instruction. The letter concludes with this final paragraph. However, it became apparent shortly thereafter during the questioning of Mia the very next day that in fact the government's motive all along must have been to suggest that Mr. Combs had corrupt influence over the LA authorities, and when it tried to create the impression that he was responsible for the destruction of the fingerprints. Specifically, the government elicited testimony from Mia about two incidents in which the LAPD did not issue a ticket for speeding after she was pulled over because the officers found out she worked for Mr. Combs. In one case, Mia got pulled over speeding, name dropped that her boss was Mr. Combs, and got him on the phone, after which the officer was saying, quote, saying like, "Oh my God, Puff Daddy, I love you." Like just went into this whole very excited conversation. Then she let me go, unquote. That is a quote from Mia's testimony that day. The second time Combs was in the car, and once they saw Puff, they were like, "Oh, my bad, yeah," and left us alone. The prosecutor took special care to emphasize that these incidents occurred in Los Angeles. The question during testimony was, what city did these interactions with the police occur in? The answer was, these incidents in isolation seem like benign examples of police giving lenient treatment to popular famous people. Coupled with the sinister implications of the fingerprint destruction, however, they create a strong implication that the reason Mia, and as the government will surely argue other alleged victims, didn't go to the police was because of Mr. Combs' corrupt influence over the police and the LAPD in particular. In other words, the subsequent questioning of Mia, even if itself permissible, further corroborates that the government's real purpose in its questioning of the fire inspector, Las Jimenez, was to improperly suggest that Mr. Combs corruptly caused the destruction of the fingerprints. This constitutes another instance of prosecutorial misconduct. Accordingly, the court should grant a mistrial based on prosecutorial misconduct. And that is the end of the letter. Okay, now let's quickly go through the tweets from Inner City Press that detail what Ms. Bangolin said in court as her testimony. ASUSA, that's the Attorney for United States of America, the government calls Brianna Bangolin. What else are you called? Bangolin, Bana. ASUSA, what do you work in? Bangolin, fashion design. The government, what did Mr. Combs do to you? Bangolin, held me over a 17th story balcony. Any after effects? Night terrors. I wake up in my sleep. Who is this? Shows a photo. It's Cassie Ventura, my friend. I met her in 2013 at Young and Reckless, the streetwear company, then at Diamond Designs. Government, how would you describe Cassie's relationship with Mr. Combs? Volatile. I did not want to meet him right away. I had seen a black eye. She begged me to meet him. Did you do design work for Mr. Combs? A little. Where did Mr. Combs live? I think in like Beverly Hills. Nicole Westmoreland, objection, speculation. Judge, ask another question. Government, do you know the name of the street? Bungolan, Mapleton, 200 South Mapleton. Now, this is already setting up for a questionable testimony because the question was very clear. Where did Mr. Combs live? And her answer was, I think like Beverly Hills. So they asked, did you know the name of the street? And she knew the actual name of the street and the address, Mapleton, 200 South Mapleton. What did you do with Cassie? Drugs, and we'd go shopping. We'd hang out with Deontay and others. Is this a photo of you and Cassie shopping? Yes, in April 2016, Puff texted Cassie asking where she was. He sent a list of where we had been. Had you or Cassie told Combs where you were? No. How did it make you feel? Westmoreland, objection. Judge overruled. Bungolan, like, oh my God, he knows where we've been. The government, where would you sleep at Cassie's? Couch or the balcony, Bungolan said. The government, did Mr. Combs come over? Yes, he banged on the door and came in. Do you know how? I don't know. He was upset. He threw a knife in her direction and she threw it back. He left swiftly. The government, were you doing drugs? Bungolan, I don't remember. The government, did you call the police? No. Why not? I was scared. Did you see the injuries on Cassie? She showed me on FaceTime before makeup for the perfect match. What did she say? She was quiet. We were at a party at the Blind Dragon, a karaoke bar in West Hollywood, when we went to Cassie's house to help her pack. Deontay was there. Puff came. The government, are you under subpoena? Bungolan, yes, I won't get in trouble if I'm truthful. The government, did Mr. Combs provide you drugs? Bungolan, yes. One was called G. I'm not an avid user. The other is Special K, the ketamine, the green stuff, and the cocaina. The government, how often did you get those things for Cassie? Bungolan responded, often, those oxy pills. The government, did she pay you? Bungolan, yes. The government, did you get drugs from Mr. Combs? The Bungolan said, yes, cocaina. Did you sell drugs for others? Yes, sometimes. Did you try with Cassie to stop them, the drugs? Yes, we tried to cook, but there were a lot of drugs around. Has Mr. Combs ever threatened you? Yes. Let me show you a photo from April 2016. Who's in it? This photographer who goes by the name Bad Boy with an I. We thought it was cool that was his name. We thought we'd make some art. Puff came up close to my face and said, I am the devil and I could kill you. And she seems to begin to to sob. The government, were you taking drugs that day? Bungolan, probably cocaina. The government, could you continue to see Mr. Combs after that? The government said, did you continue to see Mr. Combs after that? She said, yes. The government, why? I don't know. Did you tell the government about the threat in your first meeting? No. Why not? Defense, objection. Judge, sustained. Government, we could break here. Anything before, they took a break and now they're back. And the government, what happened on the balcony? Bungolan, I was there. Now was there? Bungolan, I guess who was there? Bungolan, Cassie and my ex-girlfriend at the time. What were you doing? Sleeping on the couch with my ex. Government, doing drugs. Bengalin, I don't recall. The government, what did you do when Mr. Combs arrived? Bengalin, I took my ex-girlfriend in the bathroom and went, shh. Why? I didn't want to expose her to what I saw. Then, the government says then, and Bengalin says, went out on the balcony and either lit the blunt or was about to. Bengalin, Mr. Combs came up behind me on the balcony. He lifted me up and put me on the railing. Can you show us how he held you? She says to myself. The government says, show us. How much did you weigh? She says, I can't say because of the drugs. I was about 115 pounds. The government, what did Mr. Combs scream at you? Bengalin, he yelled, you know what the F you did? I said back, I don't know what the F I did. The government, how long did he hold you there? Bengalin, how long it takes to say that multiple times? You know what the F you did. Okay. So he was holding her. Diddy was supposedly or allegedly holding her over the balcony at this time, yelling at her, you know what the F you did. And while she was hung over the balcony, she yelled back, I don't know what the F I did. And she said that that was said multiple times. What next? Bongola says he threw me on the balcony furniture. The government, were you injured? Bongolan, I didn't know at first. The government, what did Cassie say? Bongolan, along the lines of, did you just hang over the balcony? Then I heard her girlfriend is in the house. Bongolan, he left and I left. I wanted to take a shower. I felt disgusted. I saw a huge bruise on my leg with like a piercing in the middle and back and neck pain. The government, is this photo a fair and accurate representation of your leg? She says yes. She says, I called one of my managers and they said, if you're scared of anything else, just go to a chiropractor. The government, did you tell the chiropractor what who done it to you? She says no. They asked, but I just paid and took the neck brace. The government, is the neck brace in this photo of you? She says yes. The government, did you ever talk with Mr. Combs about this? She says, I said I don't want any problems with you. He didn't say anything. The government, when did you last see him? She says January 2nd, 2018. The government, how do you remember? She says, I tattooed the date on myself. The government, why? She says, it's the day I decided to get sober. It was a New Year's thing in Miami at the one hotel. Puff, Cassie, and I did 8 hours of Special K together. Are you aware Cassie included the balcony incident in her complaint? Yes, I told her she had the facts wrong. I wasn't in a hotel in Tiffany. The government, have you talked with Cassie about your testimony or hers? She says, no, I have nightmares. I scream. The government, when the last time you had nightmares? She says, the other day. The government, have you hired a lawyer about the balcony incident? She says, yes, my first lawyer hired in January 2024. The government, did you mention everything in your first meeting with us? She says, no. Did your first lawyer send demand letters to Mr. Combs? She says, multiple, and the demand was high. He picked it. The government, did you approve the letters? She says, no, they were incorrect. I let them go. The government, who? She says, Tyrone Blackburn. The government, did people reach out to you? Bungolin, Tiffany, Cassie, the producer, Rob Holiday. The government, was he friends with Mr. Combs? She says yes. And Westmoreland, the defense attorney, says, may we have a sidebar? And the judge says we may. I'm going to try to find out what some of these sidebars, what they're saying in these sidebars. but now they're back. The government, who did Mr. Holliday say he was calling for? She says, Puff. The government, what offer was he authorized to make? Westmoreland, objection. Judge, sustained. The government, how did you feel during the call? Bungolan says, I declined the offer. And Westmoreland said, not responsive. I guess that was an objection. And the judge says, sustained. Move on unless you are prepared to ask some of the foundational questions we discussed at sidebar. The government, did you talk to him again? She says, no. Now, after another sidebar, the judge says the objections are sustained. Move on. United States Attorney Smizer says, your lawsuit, who did you write it? She says no. How much is being requested? She says 10 million. He says nothing further. And the judge asks if they are interested in a cross-examination, and Westmoreland says yes. Now, what they are getting into is the fact that Bungolan has a civil suit against Puffy for 10 million. Now, I have heard that Westmoreland is like a bad mama jamma. She is like one of the best defense attorneys out here. She is a black woman, and she has worked with the RICO case with YSL, I believe it was. She just finished that case. Y'all know that case ended just like a couple of weeks ago. So here she is on this case with Diddy as his defense. And she begins by saying, I need to ask you some questions. You have immunity as long as what you say today is true, right? Bangolan says, yes. Westmoreland, who decides if you're lying? Bangolan says, the prosecutors. And Westmoreland goes on to say, Miss Bangolan, were you a graphic designer? She says, yes. You and Cassie will work on designs, including at her house, true? She says, yes. All right. You were focused on a t-shirt design. Bangolan says there were a lot of things. Westmoreland says she asked you to come over, and she says, yes. You suggested Cassie do a photo shoot in the pool in just a t-shirt. Bangolan said that wasn't the first idea, but yes. Westmoreland says, you began to feel comfortable with her. Bangolan says, sounds around it. Westmoreland says, you spent the night? She says, yes. The defense, Westmoreland says, you went to parties with Cassie? Bangolan says, not going to parties. We partied. Westmoreland says, okay, you did a lot of drugs with Cassie. She says, yes. Westmoreland says, how did marijuana make you feel? She says, sometimes hungry. How did ecstasy make you feel? She says, uplighted. How about G? She says, like the negative parts of alcohol. What about perk? She says, I threw up. Westmoreland says, Cocoa Puffs. And Bangolan says, a blunt with the weed and cocaine. Oh, okay. That's what Cocoa Puff is. Okay. You would agree, Westmoreland says, you would agree with me that you and Cassie had a serious drug problem. She says, yes. You sold drugs to Cassie a lot? She says, yes. You got her hundreds of pills? She says, yes, they were hers. Westmoreland says, name the drug dealers. Bangolan says, I don't know if I can. Westmoreland says, let's refresh. In this job, your clothing line did not work out due to the skater mentality at Diamond Supply Company. Bangolan says, I believe they saw the vision, but whatever. Westmoreland, you believed you were one of Cassie's best friends? Yes, but you didn't meet Mr. Combs for a year? You met in 2016, first time at a dinner at this house? Yes. He was standoffish with you? Yes. Did you talk with Deontay Nash after his testimony? She says yes, but not about his testimony, right? Westmoreland says. She says, we know what's going on. Westmoreland says, you don't need to talk because you know and the government objected, and the judge sustained that objection. Westmoreland says, you hired Tyrone Blackburn to sue Mr. Combs. Bongolan said it was to seek justice. Westmoreland, your definition of justice is to sue Mr. Combs. Bongolan says, can you rephrase that? Westmoreland says, suing for money. Bongolan says, yes. Combs' Westmoreland now says, November 2023, you were aware Cassie filed a lawsuit. You were working together then. She says, yes. The government wants to sidebar, and the judge says, okay. Now they are back. Westmoreland, Cassie included the balcony incident in her lawsuit. Bongolan, true. Westmoreland, Cassie said this happened at a hotel, true? Bongolan, she didn't say it like that. Westmoreland, you said your apartment as it has a balcony. Bongolan, I didn't say it like that. Westmoreland, Cassie told you she never saw you over a balcony. Bongolan, no ma'am, I don't remember. So Westmoreland laughs and says, all right here, read this page and then look up. You had these conversations? She says, I don't know. What about this alleged balcony incident? You and Miss Ventura talked about the date, the place. Who was there? She says, true. Westmoreland, in 2015, 2016, you didn't see any signs of violence, true? She says, I don't know the exact year. The birthday party, Westmoreland says, what drugs were you doing? Bongolan, I don't remember. Westmoreland, the alleged knife throwing incident. He just walked in and threw a knife. She says, I'm not sure. Westmoreland said, are you telling the truth? Government says, objection. The judge sustained that objection. Westmoreland says, didn't you tell the government they would get in knife fights, plural? She says, I don't remember. Westmoreland says, let me show you. She says, I was suggesting the knife came from where the knife came from. Westmoreland says, because it makes no sense. Westmoreland says, you're saying you don't know how he got in to throw the knife, but once he's left, you're no longer worried. She says, I don't remember how I felt. Westmoreland says, you say at a photo shoot, Mr. Combs said, I could kill you? She says, yes. Westmoreland says, but at first you told the government that it was at a party. She says, I don't know. Westmoreland says, your first demand letter said Mr. Combs said I could kill you while he hung you over the balcony. Bongolan says he did both, just not at the same time. So the government asks for a sidebar. When they come back, Westmoreland says, you met the government January 18th, 2024, didn't mention I could kill you, but put it in your subsequent demand letter? Yes, in a demand letter. I don't know when. Westmoreland, read this. Bongolan, the whole thing? Westmoreland, this paragraph. Judge says as much as you want. Bongolan, thanks. Okay. Westmoreland, you didn't tell the government about I could kill you and Tyrone was there. Bongolan, yes, I let him go. Drugs were expensive, right? Bongolan, they are expensive. Westmoreland, now? Bongolan, I don't know. Westmoreland, did you run out of money for drugs? Bongolan, I don't remember that. Westmoreland, you and Cassie had a drug partnership? She responds, yes. Cassie would pay for the drugs. You go and buy them? She says, yes. Did you meet the government on May 25th, 2025 and June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th? Yes, that's not long ago. Westmoreland, that's today. Bongolan, I'm not good with dates. Westmoreland, the balcony incident. Didn't you tell the government there was a party in the apartment? I don't remember that. You told the government your girlfriend was in the bathroom, not that you took her in there. My ex. Westmoreland, your complaint says you were smoking a cigarette on the balcony, not weed. Bongolan, I don't remember. Westmoreland, different things. Bongolan, yes. Westmoreland, you told the government you recalled he was charging at you. She says, I don't remember. Didn't you first say Mr. Combs sexually assaulted you on the balcony? She says, I showed them where his hands were. Westmoreland says, you said he groped your breast, or your lawyer said it. She says, my lawyer said that. She says, well, why didn't you tell the prosecutors? Why didn't you tell these prosecutors 2 days ago that you couldn't remember what happened out on that balcony? She says, I don't remember. Westmoreland says, do you remember what drugs you were on? She says, no. Westmoreland says, didn't you tell the government you took Molly G and cocaine? Mongolian said, that's a lot of drugs. She says, Westmoreland says, didn't you take them all? Mongolian says, not all on that night. Westmoreland, how much more do you have? The judge asks. She says, how much can I get? Laughing, I'd like to finish today. Westmoreland says she has quite a bit more. And the judge gives her a time frame to 11 o'clock the next day. So court is adjourned for that day. And you can see that Westmoreland has caught her up about the drugs she took, which drugs she took, and all of that. So let me get back to her testimony the next day. And let me see. Okay, so the next day she has a little bit more. Okay, so the judge, bring in Miss Bongolan, then the jury. All rise. Now, the judge says, jurors, we have lunch coming in for you. We're going to take a shorter break. Miss Westmoreland, what is this a photo of? Bongolan, drugs. Westmoreland, you sent this to Cassie? She says yes. Westmoreland, now exhibit 1287. What's this? She says, some type of drugs. Westmoreland, how many types? She says, I can't tell. Westmoreland says, you're still doing drugs with Cassie on May 31st, 2016, right? She says, yes. Just before this, Mr. Combs threatened your life? Bongolan says, yes. Westmoreland says, you weren't scared to continue dealing with Cassie? She says, I guess not. Westmoreland, okay. You said Mr. Combs groped your breast? The government says, objection. And the judge says, ask again. Westmoreland, Mr. Tyrone said Mr. Combs groped your breast. True. Bongolan says some of the things he wrote were not true. Westmoreland says you fired him and hired new civil attorneys and they drafted a lawsuit. You reviewed it? She says, to the best of my ability. Westmoreland, look at this document. Only for the parties. Ma'am, isn't it true that your lawyer, Mr. Tyrone, alleged for the first time sexual assault, and although you knew it was untrue, you began repeating it? Bongolan says, can you rephrase that? Mr. Tyrone, this is what Westmoreland says. Mr. Tyrone alleged that Mr. Combs sexually assaulted you, right? Bongolan, I can't speak for him. Westmoreland, you speak for you. You kept repeating the lie about the grabbing your breast. Bongolan, can you restate it? Westmoreland, okay. Westmoreland says, you continued accusing Mr. Combs of sexually assaulting you, even though you knew it was not true. Bongolan, it's really hard to commit to the whole sentence. Westmoreland, you knew sexual assault was the only way you could sue. She says, I don't recall. Westmoreland, you say you were screaming. Are you aware of anyone else calling the police? She says, I don't think so. Westmoreland, you didn't go to an urgent care? Bongolan, I didn't. Westmoreland, you didn't tell the chiropractor what happened? She says, no. Bongolan says, why not? I'm sorry, Westmoreland says, why not? She says, I was scared. Westmoreland says, okay, the girlfriend, what's her name? Bongolan said, Sarah or Friday. Westmoreland says, full name, please. Bongolan says, I think Sarah Siddell or something like that. It was a while ago. You got the government she was Friday, or you told the government she was Friday and that she wouldn't know anything. Bongolan said, I'm not sure. Westmoreland, on October 4th, 2016, didn't you attend Mr. Combs' concert? Bongolan says, I don't remember the date, but yes, I went. Westmoreland says, may we read the text? Texts. Judge says proceed. Westmoreland, you told Bana I'll read Cass. Westmoreland says, you read Bana, I'll read Cass. Bongolan, I don't know what I wrote. Westmoreland, asked Miss Ventura. Coolio, what time? Bongolan, love you. Thank you for yesterday. Westmoreland, you're asking Cass if Puff would like a sweatshirt 2 weeks after you allege he held you over a balcony. Bongolan, we were trying to be cool. Westmoreland, repeat that. Bongolan, we had the FaceTime call and we were trying to be cool. Westmoreland, wasn't it true that you continued to see Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura because Mr. Combs did not cause those injuries? Bongolan, part of that statement is true and part I can't agree with. Westmoreland, you did see your phone number on this. She says yes. Westmoreland says, this text is from October 15, 2016, from Mr. Combs to you. She says yes. Mr. Combs wrote, if you're going to do K with her, at least have her back. Do you remember receiving this? Bongolan says, yes. Westmoreland says, you remember the Bad Boy reunion tour. You started on it but didn't complete it. Maybe one or two, Bana said, or Bongolan said. Westmoreland, September 25th, 2016. The tour was at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. True? Bongolan, I'm not aware, not sure on the dates. Westmoreland says he was on stage with Lil' Kim. Bongolan, I don't know. And at the Harlem Salute to Achievement, the government says objection and the judge says sidebar. Now, after the sidebar, Westmoreland says, is this Trump International Hotel stay of Frank Black include September 26, 2016, in-room breakfast for $231? You see? She says, yes. You agree one person can't be in two places at the same time. Bongolan says, hard to say. Westmoreland says, you told jurors Combs injured you in LA on September 26, 2016. Government says, may we have a sidebar? And the judge says, yes, you may. Westmoreland just catching this girl up at everything she done said. Now, Westmoreland says, Mr. Combs did not cause the injuries in the photo you provided with metadata saying September 26, 2016. Bongola says, I can't agree with that. Westmoreland, a person can't be in LA and New York at the same time. Bongolan, my answer is the same. Westmoreland, no further questions. The judge wants to know if they want to redirect. So the government has decided to redirect after the sidebar, and the government attorney Smizer says, did you ever review the notes taken at your interviews? Bongolan says no. The government says, did you give Cassie permission to put your name in her complaint? She says no. After she filed, I hit her up to tell her of the mistakes. Tiffany wasn't there. The government, when you filed your lawsuit, was its report of the balcony the same or different as Cassie's? Bongolan says different. Government, is what you said today your best recollection? She says yes. The demand letters of your first lawyer, did you write them? She says no. The demand letter that said Mr. Combs squeezed your breast so hard you had bruises. Had you said that? She said, no, ma'am. The government, do you demonstrate with motions? Please do this. Bungolin, he started at, oh, can you demonstrate with hand motions? He started at my armpit. Were they on your breast? She said, yes. Do you yourself know the exact date of the balcony incident? Bungolin says no. The government says, why not? She says, it was a while ago. The government says, any doubt Mr. Combs held you over the balcony? She says, no doubt. Nothing further, the government says. Now the judge is asking the defense if they want to have a recross examination. And of course, Westmoreland says yes. In a follow-up interview with the government, you gave them pictures of your leg injury with metadata, true? Metadata, true? Bungolin, I gave them pictures. Westmoreland says, when you sued Mr. Combs, you weren't rich. She says, I was not. Westmoreland says, you saw this as a chance to make $10 million, true? Bungolin said the judge would review. Westmoreland says, it means you have a lot. It means a lot to you to become a millionaire and soon, right? Bungolin says, no, I am here for justice. Westmoreland says, meaning money, nothing further. Judge, thanks, Miss Bungolin. Is there an exhibit publishing? So they decide to take a break and they have dismissed Miss Bungolin from the stand. That is the end of her testimony. Now it seems that this case may really come down to a technicality, a mistrial on a technicality. I don't think that the judge will grant the mistrial tomorrow, but we already know that before the end of next week, Diddy's counsel will be asking for a mistrial again because this is like the third time that they have asked for a mistrial. Now, we know that we have some really explosive testimony set to take place tomorrow. Jane Doe is supposed to be on a cross examination tomorrow after spilling a lot of tea about her relationship with Diddy and kind of how he had turned her into an an involuntary sex ex worker. So tomorrow she's really going to get down into the nitty gritty. And I have been reading some things about what her testimony will contain. It's thought that she's really going to begin to talk about some of the violence that she experienced at the hands of Diddy and kind of have a very graphic but similar picture to what Cassie and Mia and others like Capricorn have painted in terms of their relations or dealings with Diddy. So, of course, his defense team wanted to go ahead and get this mistrial out there so that the first thing Monday morning we can have a discussion over that, and maybe they will get lucky, and the trial will come down or they will be granted a mistrial by the judge. But you know that's just a technicality. That's just a formality because a mistrial for Diddy would not be anything good for him. He would still be in jail. They would just revamp the case and then retry him under the new case that they have created. The only thing that really will give Diddy the freedom that he is expecting would be a total non-guilty verdict on all of the charges. Right now, from what I'm seeing, it seems like they are still building the case regarding the RICO. I expected them to be further along with the RICO, but they are still building the case regarding the RICO. I don't think that the jury right now, from what I've seen and read, is convinced that the RICO actually took place. Now, I think that they might be confident in returning a guilty verdict for the sex trafficking charges and the transportation for prostitution charges. I think that those might be met. The standard might be met for those two as of right now, but I don't think that the RICO is quite there yet. Now, we've heard about some really egregious behavior. I mean, I'm just really shocked that Diddy was this guy. But these people not lying. He has done all of this stuff that they saying he did. He did exactly what they saying he did, you know. But there is the technical aspect of it, because some of the witnesses really have not done well for the prosecution and have been determined to be lying. Okay, so we, just went through the testimony of Bana, and we saw that she was lying, which called into question Cassie's testimony, which maybe had been some lies, okay, and even went into some things that maybe Mia had said. But anyway, we will see what the judge says tomorrow, and I will see you all in the morning so that we can kind of go through it in real time. And hopefully we can go through some of the testimony this so we can kind of put the pieces together as a team and see what we come up with. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me on this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think Diddy is gonna get off? Like, what do you think about everything so far? Do you think that the prosecution has proven their case? The one thing I do feel is that the defense has done a great job of, creating doubt, because all you need is doubt. You don't need to have a person not guilty in order for a jury to return a not guilty verdict. The only thing you have to have is doubt, where a juror feels where a juror feels doubt that something actually happened, or what the charge is, actually occurred. And I think that the defense has done a great job of creating doubt in some areas, but I also feel like the prosecution has really done well on their side as well. Now, I'm really looking at the facts of the case and really want to evaluate the facts of the case in a non-emotional, non-biased way. I just really want to evaluate what's being presented and think from the mind of a juror. Now, feeling like I want Diddy to go down for 1,000 years really does no justice, because at the end of the day, the jurors are the ones who are going to decide this thing, and they are going to decide it based upon the judge's orders, the judge's charge, and their non-emotional, non-biased perspective of what was presented in court. So anyway, let me know what you think down below. I would love to hear it and have a little dialogue about what you all think is going on moving forward. And I'll see you in the comments, and see you again in the morning. Bye.